Hello, everyone. Before we get into this episode, it's important for you to remember to be empathetic and understanding for every single guest that I have on this show. If you enjoy this content, please make sure to subscribe and follow because I do release weekly videos every single week. Otherwise, enjoy the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and I am really excited to announce my next guest. She is a musical genius, complete with her own Overwatch Christmas album, as well as being a streamer for Gen.G. Please let me introduce Fareeha Anderson, maybe better just known as Fareeha. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Blake. Great to be here.
I'm excited. And you are a musical genius. Like, the Overwatch music is very good. Okay, it takes a lot of, I think it takes a lot of talent to be able to do that and hard work to be able to put together customized lyrics for different songs. I appreciate that, man. So, and they were a lot of fun to do. Oh yeah, you're a musician too. I am.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you play?
I actually play guitar. I actually have a guitar right next to me, believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah, so I play guitar, I played in bands. I do some singing, though I do not claim to be any good of a singer. But for someone who has missing fingertips, I'm not that bad at guitar. So
what happened with your fingertips?
So I actually stuck my hand in a snowblower when I was 15.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so, because unfortunately I lived in a very snowy hellhole of the world, so.
Heck, that does not sound pleasant.
No, it isn't. So I'm really excited to kind of get to know you better, get to know a little bit about you, and as well as kind of share with the world who you are as a person. And I always like to start it off fairly easy for like questions. And hopefully this will be somewhat of an easy question. What makes you so inspired about music? What is it about music that you love so much?
Oh, for music, man, it's the kind of expression that you don't really get with anything else. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I don't know, I grew up listening to a lot of music and a lot of classical and a lot of jazz. And it's that kind of, I don't know, it's the kind of expression and kind of understanding and, I don't know, hearing music, there's one thing that I always like think back on. It makes you feel less lonely, right? Because it's that one common thing that every human has like to relate to, no matter what language they speak, no matter where they're from, the color of their skin, gender, it's universal. And it's that language that just, it's so gorgeous and so beautiful, you know?
It is.
That's so cheesy. That's such a cheesy answer. Holy.
It is. Yeah. It's okay. But it's honest. It's true. It's true. Like I watch you talk about music there, and like even like mentioning it, like I see it just like almost light up in your eyes the way that you think about music there, which I think is really profound and something that is true. And I can kind of relate to that, having played music and played on stage and stuff like that. And so like I can definitely relate to that. So kind of looking at music seems to be a very huge part of your life. And so let's kind of delve into that. Let's delve a little bit into your life a little bit. So first of all, I want to ask how old you are, which is the worst question you could ever ask someone in the history of existence. But I couldn't find it, so
you really couldn't find it?
I did not find it. So
okay. Yes. How do you think I am?
Oh, this is a trick question. Okay, I will do this, but then you have to guess how old I am. Okay.
I will do this.
So I'm going to guess that you are 21.
20. Close.
Okay.
Dang, you're right on.
I was pretty close. Okay, now how old am I?
I'm guessing 25 for you.
I am 27, actually. So, yeah. Gotcha. So I am fairly old.
We got the 20s gang still.
Yeah,
pretty
20s
cool.
Gang.
Yeah.
30s is approaching, though. It's terrifying.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, looking at kind of where you grew up in Canada, right?
That's right.
Okay, where'd you grow up in Canada?
Toronto, born and raised.
Toronto and born and raised. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is Toronto like for those who have never been there? If you had to describe Toronto and what it's like living there, what's it like for you?
Toronto, our winters are very long. The spring doesn't exist. It just winter, summer. And the people are really, really nice. The other day I had a really bad running incident, and my foot, the back of like the heel of my foot got caught in like a crack in the road, and I was like sprinting, so it just like the front of my foot had nowhere else to go, and I just like it went forward with my shin. It like twisted, and it was really bad. I went flying, and like 4 cars stopped to help me, and all these people came out of their homes because it was this residential street, and people were so nice. They were like, "Can we get you anything? Can we take you to the hospital? Are you okay? Are you gonna be fine? Do you have a cell phone?" they were so sweet. And
That
yeah.
that reminds me of living in. So I grew up in the Midwest. So I don't know if you were.
Mhm.
Do you know where Michigan is? It's right next to Canada.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So Detroit is fairly close to Canada, and that's what people always associate. I actually live way farther north than that. In fact, more north than a lot of Canada people. But
Yeah.
the Midwest is very much like that too, where if you like break down or something happens, people will just help you all the time. And it's kind of unique, and especially if you've when you go to LA is not like that at all.
Yeah. So it's very like kind of self-serving a bit more, right?
Yeah, it was not something that I was kind of used to. So you grew up in Toronto, you're used to all these nice people around. What is life growing up like for you?
Oh, growing up, it was a lot of academics, a lot of music, a lot of practice, a lot of routine, basically, and trying to sneak video games into the routine because I hated it. I was one of those kids who was kind of forced into music, and I loved it. But it's like when you have to do something for like 4 to 8 hours a day, even like no matter how dedicated you are to it, no matter how you love it, you're gonna have gripes with it. I still feel that like right now with streaming, but it's you're gonna have that with anything, right? And it's just all
Yeah.
about overcoming it and persevering through.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have a sister,
Older, younger?
younger,
Okay, how much younger?
2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah, she's not really involved with my life though, so
Oh, okay.
it's really
Uh,
separate.
So, looking at growing up, like I've seen your mom and like your streams and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What was growing up like for you? Because I see your mom. Is your dad around anymore?
Oh, my parents. How would I say this? Growing up, it was mostly my grandparents who raised me and took care of me.
Okay.
So that was the main thing. But lately, my relationship with my mother and my father has improved a lot,
Mhm.
and I'm super happy to say that. But yeah,
So my parents actually divorced when I was right around 6 years old, and it was not very pleasant, like to be honest. And then like my mom was like a drug addict, and so like that whole
oh
thing was
dear.
not very. I know, uh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm okay now. But I know for a long time I had a lot of resentment for that, and our relationship it's getting better, but it is definitely not to a perfect place. And I think that that's a good story to kind of like get people to is to realize that even though you have some trauma or you have some things that don't work out with family, like you can move to it. So what's your story behind your parents?
My parents, when I was growing up, they were a bit more removed from my life. At least, like what they provided for me, and they did so much to fuel all my studies,
Yeah.
and put a roof over my head, keep me well fed, and all that stuff. And I'm eternally grateful for that because man, music lessons are expensive, and when you're paying
Yeah.
for like 3 instruments, that racks up. Like it was like what like 300 to 500 a week, so much money. And like beyond that though, they were not really there for me emotionally in the way that I needed them to be. And I think it's more so like a cultural thing, right? It's not that they were like they meant bad or anything, or that they wanted to ignore me. It was more of a cultural thing of them being immigrants, and
Mhm.
just having different values from those of the white families over here. And growing up, I would see media of like Full House or like all those other TV shows, and see how my friends' parents were, and like see how everybody else's lives were, and how like their dynamic with their family was so different. And I always felt like there was something missing. But I'm growing up realizing that love from parents, from family, is shown in different ways, and
Yeah.
you know to be okay with that.
So where did they come from? I didn't want to assume anything. So
Oh, China.
okay, China. So
China, and part Chinese, part Norwegian.
okay, that's cool. So that being said, did you have lots of like cultural aspects that would go on in like your house that was very different from like the people around you?
Oh, I'm thinking. I don't know. I think my main thing was just like as as I was growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, And they were a bit more traditional and a bit more like very like academically centered, and they really really wanted me to go and pursue the academics, pursue sciences and medicine and that kind of thing. And I wanted to, but I was slowly like driven out of that by like bad teachers and stuff like that. You know how it goes. And their insistence on me going to university actually kind of backfired, and slowly I began to realize from the stories they would hear and the things I would read about is that university is actually such a sham. For certain subjects, yes, absolutely go and get that second like post secondary education, but for the arts, hell no, you're gonna get ripped off so much. For music, don't even bother. It's so not worth it. Find mentors, find teachers, and find coaches that gel with you, and don't try to shoehorn you into this, cookie cutter way of making art to their taste. Because that's what they always did with me, and I hate it every minute.
It's the reason why I dropped out of a music education program. Actually, is because
Really?
one of my professors. Yeah, I joined the program, and I taught myself saxophone like the year before, like so I could get in, because I only played guitar, but they wouldn't take guitar as an instrument, and so he would always be like, "You're not good enough. You're not playing like this way." And eventually, I basically said, "Screw you, dude. I'm done." And I just dropped out. No, I have a degree in psychology, which is arguably as useful as a music education degree.
Absolutely.
So
when I was in the conservatory for music, like my professors would always want me to play contemporary, like modern music, contemporary modern classical. Do you know about neoclassical music? Do you know what it sounds like?
I at one point, yes, but to be honest, I am a shitty music student because
That's okay.
I don't really like I can appreciate classical, but I honestly cannot stand to listen to it. It doesn't do anything for me. So jazz was good.
We're not even talking about classical. This neoclassical like stuff. It's like if you were to open up a piano, take out the lid, sit on it. That's the music. That's the music they tried to get me to play, and like that was the taste that they tried to shoehorn me into. And anything like from the Romantic era, any jazz that I wanted to perform, anything like that I wanted to practice and get better with, nope, off the table, because it's not industry standard apparently. Like, but who listens to that shit? I don't get it.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had lessons for 3 instruments. How many different instruments do you play?
Well enough to charge money for piano, violin, and voice. Those would be the
Okay. So that's pretty good. Did you ever play in any bands or anything growing up? Like besides obviously you were required to play in probably some sort of classical bands or orchestra or stuff like that through school. But did you ever do like anything else on the side? Like
nothing else on the side. I did some chamber music for a couple of gigs, but before streaming just did freelance music and composing, producing music, and some gigs for weddings and stuff like that.
Okay. So we're gonna get to that in a bit. I'm gonna jump the gun here and jump the timeline a little bit, which I'm gonna try to be good about. So looking at growing up, what kind of school did you go to?
I went to I had to switch schools quite a bit because of going into different French programs, and so a lot of moving around. Even though I never really physically moved until like a month ago.
Okay, so when you say that you had to switch schools a lot because of you said French program, I wanted to make sure. Okay, what does that mean? Because you have to understand, I'm an uncultured American who does not have any languages and cannot speak anything but America.
That's all right. We have over here like programs for those who want to go into more extensive French learning. So that they're like, there's the extended French program and like immersion and like a bunch of different things. But what it does basically is you have more French classes. That's the main thing. But then half of your classes will be taught in French, or like 75% of them will be taught in French. So you'd have like history and like gym and like sex ed and even science and art and music. All of those were in French.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you were so good, or you were just progressing through that you had to change schools because they didn't offer as much?
Somewhat. Maybe you could say that.
There's a blender going on. That blender is.
There is. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You're good. I hope that she's blending something delicious.
I hope so.
So, kind of looking at the different schools, how many different schools did you swap between?
I'd say about 5 or 6. Five? I can't even tell you, to be honest. I've
Okay.
blocked that part of my life out.
Well, we're gonna reopen that here slowly and surely. So, kind of looking at growing up for school, how often would you switch schools? Do you
It
remember
was
how
like
many?
every 2 years.
Okay. So I imagine that would make it very hard with friends, like making friends, because every 2 years you're
You bet.
functional, you're in a new school. So what was that experience like for you?
It I think it kind of turned me into this antisocial hermit. No, I do want to like go out and meet people, but like when I was in high school and I didn't understand social interactions like nearly as much as I do now, it felt like I was always an outsider because when you're switching around so much and you're always going to these different programs, you're always meeting people who have known each other for their whole lives, right? And like even if you join a friend group, even if you like click with people and you make acquaintances, you make like close friendships, even you feel like the odd one out, you feel like the third friend
Yeah.
no matter what, and it's a lonely feeling.
Okay. So did that
Yeah.
ever cause you to like, especially when you're talking about moving schools every 2 years, did that cause you to stop trying to reach out and make friends and stuff?
I think in my last years of high school, I really, really shut in on myself, and I basically found loopholes to not go to class and switch all my courses to co-op at a music studio. So that was my last year. I didn't even get the credits at that point because I had so many transferable credits from the Conservatory of Music, so it was all good.
So basically, your last year you avoided school completely and
Yep.
just okay. So kind of looking at growing up and this lifestyle. What kind of kid were you like growing up? Were you the perfect student who like just did whatever you were supposed to? Were you someone who didn't really care that much about it and just
When I was growing up, I was super extroverted. Like I would, as a kid, I would like go up on tables and I would like dance and sing for anybody that asked me to. I would do it in restaurants. I was batshit crazy, and it slowly like got toned down. I stopped like putting myself out there as much because of like backlash and because of getting made fun of and a bunch of bullying. But I was always like growing up. I was always a student who really, really wanted to try my best academically to like make my parents happy because that was how you got approval. That was how you got love. Like you have to do well in school. But in high school, I started finding loopholes. I started finding most people might think of this as lazy, but I thought it was extremely efficient. I had a system where I would in class I would not pay attention, but I would have my iPad recording everything and recording the whiteboard, blackboard, whatever, and I would in that time be doing assignments for other classes. And then in my like next class or in my free time between periods or whatever, I could watch that class back, but in like 3 times the speed, so it saves time and then I can do the work and then finish it super fast and have it all done digitally, and then I would never have homework, never have to do anything after school, and got a system.
I don't know if anyone could ever say that is lazy, considering all of the guests that I've had on the show. That sounds like a hack. You hacked your school system.
I did.
That is ingenious, really. Like, just I'm just gonna record this and I'm gonna.
EMP'd my way through high school, hell yeah.
Yeah, that is like hearing about that now. I'm like, I wish I would have done that in high school. I actually don't
You
think
did
we can.
great.
I don't think we were allowed to use well, first of all, we wouldn't have been able to use iPads at all when I went to school. So back in my day,
Back in my day, those weren't
yes.
allowed.
Yeah, so that would have been but college that would have been a good idea too. So I missed the gun there. So academically, it sounds like you're always trying to seek some sort of approval from your parents. Like that sounds like it was something that was really important to you. Can you go a little bit into that? What that was like, constantly trying to seek this validation through like grades or I imagine anything that was related to propelling yourself in the academic field.
Oh yeah. it was it was everything really. I was in sports too. I was trying to balance being a jock with like being this like antisocial nerd, which like it doesn't quite mesh, but it somehow worked out. And man, I it was never enough. It was never enough trying to like find validation that way because what I expected and what I wanted them to say was never really said, and it's kind of it kind of sucks in that way because you're trying so hard to be the person that you think everybody else wants you to be, and you make yourself miserable doing so. And so eventually I learned that, you know what, I'm just gonna do me. I'm gonna do what I feel is right. I'm gonna live by my values and my morals and see where that takes me. And so far that's been going great.
It has been. When did you kind of come to that realization, though?
I think it was the last year at that studio. Last year at the studio, and seeing what the music industry is like from like the backhand like point of view.
Mm-hmm. How much did you get involved with music to be able to see like some of those back end things? Because I think esports is actually like when you finally get a look into what esports is actually like, I think that there's probably a lot of similarities there. But what was it like for you to kind of pull back the curtain and look at that? What does that look like?
There's so much shit swept under the rug. There's so much.
Like give me an example. Give me some examples of things that you had seen happen.
They actively mistreat interns, which was one thing. I was an intern, so they actively mistreat interns and abuse free help. I can get into that a little bit more if you want me to. And let's see what else. The music industry is kind of fueled by who has more money, and it kind of stinks. There's some really I will say it, like talentless people, skillless people, and people who don't put in any effort, who make it big just because they have the funding behind them, just because they have a look, or like a producer who goes to them and says like, I'm going to make you into a star. And they do because they have all the tech to do so.
That is terrifying. So when you explain this intern stuff, were you still in high school doing this?
Technically, I didn't have the degree.
Okay.
Technically, I still don't have the degree. I didn't go pick it up, but
really, they didn't mail it to you?
No, they wouldn't.
Oh, that's weird. Because for us, like they didn't actually give you the degree when you go up on stage. They give you like an empty book that says, "We'll mail your degree in like."
This is just for show. This is just for show.
It's quite literally so people could take pictures. It's like a terrible thing. So, but so you were in, that was your senior year where you'd functionally gotten out of going to school. Then I take it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're growing up. You're doing really well in school. You're going through things. I gotta ask you, just because I hear you moving every 2 years, and you're already having some issues with like social relationships. I imagine like actual like intimate romantic relationships would have also been very hard.
Oh yeah, nothing on that department.
Nothing.
Nothing. Zilch.
I didn't have a girlfriend until I was a senior in high school, so I kind of feel you. It wasn't very popular. Feels bad, man. So now look at me now.
Same. I was the kind of person who shut myself in for like into the practice rooms. Mm-hmm. Like I would find like the music wing and just shut myself in, eat my lunch in like 5 minutes, and then just practice and just stay away. Because you know what? Like I felt like high school relationships, they were so fickle, they were so superficial and fake, and I always felt used by the people who would like act as my friends, and so I just stopped trying. I was better off for it, honestly.
Okay. So one of the things you had already kind of alluded to a little bit and mentioned was that bullying was something that kind of happened to you growing up. And even looking at now, when we look at Overwatch, and this is kind of why I'm bringing it up, is like being a streamer, I don't know if it necessarily went away. Like some of the stuff I've seen you post, I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, people. Yeah. So what was it like growing up with bullying for you? What did it look like for you?
For me, the first thing I got bullied endlessly about was like the way I dressed, and I really didn't have any agency over that because it was just whatever my parents forced me into. Mm-hmm. And then it was like so like flannel and like boyish jeans and all that kind of stuff. And then I had short hair, which I was never allowed to grow out until like like 6th or 7th grade. It was pretty late, and I just had short hair for all that time, and I would be called like a boy. I would be like constantly made fun of, for my name, for everything, for the way I sound. It was especially the way I sound, actually. Like, I remember in elementary school, people would mock me for my voice, and it would slowly like get to me because I slowly developed this stutter. I slowly developed a stutter because of how many people were making fun of that. And in order to kind of overcome that, I thought, what would be cool if I go and sign up for the PA announcer job. Do you know, like, every school has like the PA announcements at the start
Yep.
and start and end of every day? I signed myself up to do that. I got the post, but man, it only got worse. It only got worse because I would stutter so hard on words. It'd be reading like today is like I would get caught on Tuesday. I would get caught on syllables, and just lapses of silence would appear on the PA systems, and everybody would know it was me, and I would hear laughter ring through the hallways, and it was so humiliating. Like, even the teachers would mock me for it. It was awful, dude. And I stopped talking as much. At some points, people thought I was actually a mute, that I would talk so little that I just, yeah.
That sounds terrible. Like I'm hearing it now. Like, if I would have been I would have been coming home crying every day. Like, did you have moments like that where you were just like,
No, I didn't have anyone to really cry to, so
well,
not really.
okay. So, how did you handle that? Like, how did you work through it? Because it doesn't sound like you had very much support to be able to handle that outside of, like, yourself. You were pretty much the only person who was support. What was that like?
I just tried to work through it on my own. Like, I just saw this as a problem, the stuttering, and I tried to work through it with like reading lines and trying to get over it, and always trying to force myself to say hello to like everyone I meet, and just trying to put myself out there and talk more. But I mean, eventually it worked out. But those few years were pretty darn rough. Were pretty darn rough. I kind of just like threw myself into music and threw myself into video games to try to escape and feel better that way. And
Okay.
another thing was like combined with the hair, because I would dress like a guy, I would like sound like a dude, and so even going into the washrooms, like the girls' washrooms, I would get like endlessly harassed and like laughed at by the other girls, and I would hide in the bathroom stalls, but they could see my shoes, right, and they could still see me, and I would just hear it giggling on the other side, and I would not want to leave. Like, I would just stay in the bathroom for whole classes. Sometimes it was awful.
And your teachers were getting behind this too, where they were kind of like making fun of you and different things.
Hmm.
Jesus Christ! Like props. You are a strong fucking human being. Like, I have to tell
Thanks.
you, like I hear that and I'm like, I don't know. And like, 'cause school sucked for me. Like I got bullied and stuff like that. And I also went through like a really bad depression, and I was like I hear that and I'm like, I would have probably been into depression, and I would have been really hard for me to like even cope. But you had a very interesting coping mechanism that you basically would just double down on whatever you do, which
I kind of do that a lot, even today, even today. But
even
yeah,
today.
I do have my own brush with mental illness, though. So
See, what
I do.
you want to go into that a little bit?
Anxiety and depression for me.
Okay. When did you
Is
first
that it?
notice anxiety and depression?
It was I think it was I probably didn't have the awareness to really be able to notice it in middle
Yeah.
school, but probably high school was probably when I first realized that what, it's not normal for me to want to like stay away from everybody. It's probably not normal that all the time I spend is spent alone. You know?
And so, what did that kind of look like, and how did you handle it? Like, when you say that, is it when you would basically do the bare minimums that you had to do around people, and then go home and just avoid
Pretty
everyone?
much. Pretty much that was my way of dealing with people. Is just like I would keep them at arm's length, and I think I had my coping mechanisms too, and mine was food. So like I've always been the same weight, but the thing is I had like anorexia and bulimia, but also like mixed together. So it would be like this this thing where I feel like I can't ever eat, and then the next week I overeat, and then I make myself throw up, and my knuckles were so bruised, like my teeth were turning yellow. They're fine now, but they like my knuckles were going, and there were like these marks on my hands from like reaching back there, and it's like it was rough. It was rough. I had I had some unhealthy coping mechanisms, but I made it very, very clear to stay away from drugs because I don't want that shit fucking up my throat, my voice. Put way too much work into that to ruin it.
Yeah. So how did you get through that? How did you start to work on those different things?
Do you know about Audible?
The book Audible?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. The audiobooks,
Yeah.
So I started getting those audiobooks since like early on in high school, and I just started getting into all these like self-help things, and started getting into like I got into this like gym rat like period where I somehow got like a Good Life membership at 16, and I would like go to the gym. I would wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, like make the commute over to the school for like an hour and a half, and then get to the gym, get in 2 hours of workout, and then go to school. And it was that for a while, but and I don't know, like I just threw myself into self-love and trying to figure out how I can, direct all of the emotional, the drive I have, but in like a healthier way, because obviously those eating disorders, it's not a healthy coping mechanism. It's just a way to deal with an underlying root problem, and eventually sorted that out.
Okay, so you were doing all these like self-helps and like exercising and all these different things to kind of work on yourself. Did the depression just kind of go away along with those, or is it something that you still deal with? Like
still there.
Okay.
Still there. Yeah.
Have you done anything to try to handle it differently? Is it something that you just kind of cope with on a day-to-day basis? Have you seen a therapist, antidepressants, anything like that?
Seen a therapist. I have opted to like not try the meds yet, because I don't know. I've heard stories that they make your hands super, super shaky. If it works for people, that's awesome. Like I don't stigmatize it in my mind. It's just like I've heard about the symptoms, and I really don't want to get into that, because shaky hands would get in the way of what I do day to day, right? And not having an appetite, not being able to sleep, that's stuff I've struggled with for so long, and I just don't want to get back into it,
No, that's
and and so I've seen a therapist. I still need to book more appointments, but what else? There's like meditation. There's just working out every single day, trying to get that done, and just trying to always think about values and self-love instead of what I want in the moment. Because the other night I was in a really, really bad mental health state, and I wanted to make myself throw up again. And I just told myself, you know what? If I just asked myself, if you loved yourself, what would you be doing right now? And I was like, I wouldn't be hunched over this toilet. And so I just got up and didn't do it, which is a good feeling. Which is a good feeling to be able to step away from that stuff,
I'm like really proud of you for doing that.
Aww.
Like you're like one of my new favorite people now. You have you've kind of it takes a lot of first of all, it takes a lot of courage to be able to talk about that stuff, but also like actually working through, and lifestyle changing is very hard for people. Just in general, it's a very hard thing to do. It's something I struggle with.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah, and like mine is actually the opposite end, because I go to food when I have issues going on, but I overeat, and I have this issue where I am like an endless stomach, and I can quite literally eat an amazing amount of calories in a day that is unhealthy. So put in perspective, one Thanksgiving I put on 10, I kid you not, 10 pounds in 2 days.
2 days.
2 days. So
let me do the math here. That's 5 pounds a day, and that's 3,000 calories times 5. That's holy crap. Dang.
I lost it very quickly afterwards because fast weight on, fast weight off. But yeah, no, I weighed myself before Thanksgiving, and I weighed myself over like 2 days of Thanksgiving, like a Thursday and Friday, and 10 pounds. It was impressive. So
that is so impressive. Holy shit.
So, but it's like, I can understand with you like the eating thing, and it's just a constant battle, and I don't know if it'll ever go away realistically. Like I think some part is always going to be there like that, but it's about like getting into this thought process of how do I start to move past this, and what life do I want versus like in the future versus what do I want right now. So
Yeah, just to be able to stop yourself and pause before you do the thing that you've like habitually programmed
yeah.
into your habits is just it's so helpful because you step back a second and you're like, wait, what am I doing? Like this is not good. Shouldn't be doing this.
So you mentioned that you kind of turned into video games. When did you think that you started to really focus on like getting into video games and avoiding everything else out?
Oh, it started so early on because I would get as a kid dropped off at libraries a lot
Hmm.
during, especially like in the summers or like weekends, and it was to study like music theory and like study a bunch of stuff, and and I would just have to spend entire days, like my entire summer would be spent in a library, and you know what, I learned to love it. I learned to love it because outside of actually doing the assigned work for music or whatever, I just went in and I read a bunch of books. After reading the stuff that interested me as like a little kid, you know, I went to the Garfield comics. I went to, you know, Agatha Christie, like all that stuff, mystery novels, all that stuff. And but the most intriguing thing to me at the library were those computers and the games all the kids were playing. As they were like they would be playing these like flash games. Remember flash
Hmm.
games?
Yeah.
All those things and things like RuneScape and these like shooters. And I would see that and I would try to sign on to that myself and like give it a shot because it looked like so much fun. And like in Toronto, our public libraries have the computer time locked to an hour, allow an hour
Mhm.
maximum, split up into 2 half-hour bits, so that you could book only just that. And if like no other computers are booked throughout the day, which was rare, you would get extra time. But it was just limited to an hour a day, and I was trying to make the most out of that. And it was the best part of every day, man. It was so good.
So you would basically go into this library, and for 1 hour you could play
Mhm.
video games because you
Yeah.
would get on there. And what type of games were you playing? Were you playing like RuneScape? Were you playing Halo?
I played RuneScape so much, and then there was also a couple of shooters. Um, it was very very similar to Quake. I think it was very very similar to Quake, and I played like Doom and a bunch of other stuff like that. So yeah,
Okay, so you're.
I didn't like those dress up games or anything like that.
You see,
Not my style.
I wouldn't have even made the assumption there. Though I do remember playing some very sim-like games that probably involved dressing up characters and stuff like that. So,
Oh, I love The Sims. The Sims is
oh.
so good.
So, do you ever play Sims where you make the people that you don't like and you put them off in a room and kill them? That's an answer, yes. Everyone does it. It's okay. If you don't do it, then you're a psychotic person. So we were kind of just talking about like life in general, what life was like growing up, and you turning to video games, and you getting that hour into like play video games a day. At what point did you get your your first video game system then?
Oh, I had a PlayStation 2 growing up, but because it was generally viewed by my entire family that playing video games is a disease, it's a pox, you know, it's gonna kill your brain, it's gonna waste your time, it's gonna make sure that you grow up and you flip burgers. and so um and so my parents and my grandparents would actively hide the controllers, and the wireless controllers would have like the receptor dongle like hidden in a different place, so I couldn't just find one and be done with it. And then we just completely got rid of the wired ones, so it was just not a question. And then I got a Wii because you know like the Wii Sports and Wii Fit and all of those other like you know like active movement kind of games.
Hmm.
Those weren't seen as like brain killers, you know, brain cell killers. Those were more acceptable. So it was just a PS2 and a Wii for me. But I had a PC very very early on because I don't know I don't know at what point it happened, but it felt like it was completely necessary to have a computer as a student. Just
Yeah.
as a student, right? So it was one of those like boxy computers, kind of like squarish, and it had like a huge like thing in the back, and it would be sitting on its own, um, I guess, PC like hardware components case, and yeah, and it would malfunction so often.
Okay, so were you playing video games on that too then all the time?
I tried.
Okay, so like obviously you're I would say a famous streamer now. You're definitely
Ooh.
sponsored by an organization. You're famous. You're being paid to do this professionally. You're famous. Deal with it.
Okay,
So
okay.
okay, so like when does like streaming start to kick up? Like when does that part come in?
I started doing this less than 2 years ago.
Okay.
So it was after high school. So way
Okay.
after everything else.
So what do you do after high school? Because obviously music is something that you are in love with, that you love to do it. What are you thinking when you leave high school then?
When I left high school, I wanted to be done with classical music because I've seen what like the back of that is and what the industry standard is for that is just like, arm bang on a piano. That's what it sounds like. And it's not beautiful. It's not what I signed up for. It's not what I love so much about music. And that ability to express yourself, it was just gone. It just that passion just dried up. So I was like, you know what? I want to be a singer. You know what? I want to work for Disney, even as a cast member, like in the parks.
Hmm.
Just work as one of the character actresses. Who knows? I want to go out and do auditions, do voice acting, and all that stuff. And it was so ambitious, but I never really got into it. Really got into this because I don't talk about this a lot, but I have had plastic surgery. Like right after high school was plastic surgery, and it was a lot, and it was a lot more pain than I was ready for. And beforehand, leading up to it, I was super motivated. I had this like schedule set up. I would do like a 10K in the morning, a 10K at night, and I would do like strength training in between, and I would like go figure skating too, and I would like practice music and practice singing and try to learn these scripts just to get them in the back of my head. And all of a sudden, as soon as the surgery happened, for a month, for 2 months, 3 months, I couldn't do any of that because for the whole first month, I could barely like open my mouth. I couldn't eat properly. I couldn't work out at all. So all of that went crashing down. All my coping mechanisms, everything that brought me joy and like gave me energy, were not allowed. And so I just had this month where I completely slipped back, and I just sat in bed watching these Call of Duty tournaments and all of these gaming tournaments to keep my mind off the pain, and it just went awry from there.
Okay, I actually never knew that you had any sort of plastic surgery. What prompted you to get plastic surgery?
It was, I'll be real with you, it was just a ton of self-hate and just a ton of lack of confidence regarding how I look and all that stuff.
I think I have nothing like some people are really like against that. I don't really care that much. I think like if it's
Mm.
something that like even now you look back and you're like I would still do that, then
I would have still done it.
so like I don't think anyone could ever say anything bad for you, especially if it
Yeah.
if it helped you get a lot more self confident and helped you find something that like made you feel good about yourself. I think that's
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
totally realistic. So you have this moment where you go out there and you get this surgery. Was this something that like your family was okay with? Because you mentioned a very traditional family, and I hear
It
that in the
took some
first.
persuading. It took some persuading and some saving.
Okay, what was that conversation like? And did you pay for it yourself, or did you get help?
I got help. I was
Okay,
really grateful for that. Yep.
okay. Was that a very hard conversation to have with them?
They actually really came around fast, and that was like the first time the biggest thing I can recall, and like the turning point of like, okay, my family really does love me, and they show it in their really weird way. But when I ask for something, when I ask for support, they give it as long as they understand the reason behind it. And so it was a lot easier than I thought it would be, but it took some convincing. It took like a good couple of years before it happened. So.
Okay, so you end up getting done with high school. You want to be a voice actor slash singer slash working for a Disney, just uh, down in being one of their characters. You end up getting this surgery, and 3 months is gone. What happens after that then?
After that, I'm just in this super like I'm in shambles. I've lost my routine, and my routine has now been replaced with just like what I've been doing the past months, what I've been able to do the last months, like sitting and being stuck there, being stuck in bed, not being able to move and not being able to cope with that, not being able to have anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I immediately tried to throw myself back into figure skating and fencing. I tried to pick up fencing again, and I went to this fencing club far north of the city, and I remember the first session was so intense. We would be training, and you would be doing lunges. It was just all lunges. You know, it broke up into different kind of exercises, some coordination, some like sword work, but it was mostly just lunges and squats. And halfway through it, like 30 minutes, and I ran to the bathroom and I threw up because it was so intense for my body. Like it was such a shock to be back and doing this compared to like the set like super sedentary. What's that word?
Sedentary.
Sedentary
Sedentary.
sedentary
Yeah.
lifestyle I had been leading for the month prior. Yeah.
Okay, so you throw yourselves into these things that you love. Your body almost rejects it right away. What are your plans for the future at that point? Is it still I want to be a voice actor, singer, Disney character?
I have I have a bit of a disease. It's like the dream big or go home disease, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics, and yeah,
For fencing and
so
figure skating?
yeah, dude. I was planning for like what was it? My plan was like 2026. Like I gotta make it before then, but I don't know. I went ham. I went ham. Like I built a contraption out of like metal rods that I like bent over, and I made these little rings hang from the top, like the tops of those rods, and I would practice like with my ape and just trying to hit those like pinpoint spots and trying to lunge at those. I would just practice at home, and I don't know. It took my mind. It took my mind off of all those like nasty thoughts that were like creeping on from like anxiety and all that stuff. So
So how long did you do that for?
about half a year.
Okay, so half a year, you're just literally dedicated towards fencing, and trying to make it in the Olympics and fencing. Did your parents want you to go to university or anything?
Oh shit, that's a whole other conversation. They absolutely did. It was my grandparents that were the hardest to convince though. My grandparent though. I lost my grandpa at start of high school, which was really hard because he was pretty much my best friend and like
Sorry.
the main father figure for me growing up. And so yeah, it was really hard to convince them because they were absolutely like dead set on the fact that if I stop at high school, I will have no future and I will be resigned to working a life in retail, working a life of hard labor that they didn't want for me. You know, it was in this way of looking out for me, but not also seeing the possibility and not understanding what I was seeing day to day about music and music education and how it's such a scam, and it's all just the universities and colleges treating it like a business. It's just a business to them, and so many of the credits that they force you to take and so many of the like the essentials that they make you go through, it's all useless. You're never going to use any of that shit.
Yeah, can
Just
speak
for a
from
piece of
experience.
paper, right?
So your thought was, I don't need to go to school, and you tried to convince them not to go to school. What did you kind of get to an agreement on? Like, was there some sort of agreement you came up with, or was it just always, we want you to do this, and you're like, no?
I think it was just like they wanted me to do it, and I was like, no. There was no like set agreement. There were no like ultimatums or anything like that. But I think it was pretty clear that they wanted me to take a year off and see what I could do and see how much I could learn. If it was not okay, then they would get on my ass, which was really stressful because that was the year I started streaming, and that was the year when everything started falling into place, but very slowly. But yeah.
So you finish school, you get the surgery, you start doing fencing for 6 months, and then is streaming next? That comes up next?
Streaming, it was actually. I tried to go into YouTube. I found it way too hard to keep up with the edited content and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? There's this platform called Twitch.tv, and there's this thing called Twitch Prime. There's these live streams, and they don't have to do any editing. It's just on the spot, and they just make the content. It's there, and I'm like, I want to try that out, and it turned out to be a lot more fun than the constant editing of YouTube.
I can understand the editing aspect. Actually was going to ask you about this. You did start off doing YouTube, and you did it for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then you did stop. I think that you did put you like occasionally you'll put up like I think your Christmas album is up there, and then a couple other things that I've seen since then. But it's like very sporadic after that. When you were doing YouTube, did you decide to just start streaming on top of YouTube, or did you basically say, "I'm done with YouTube. I'm just gonna try
Oh,
doing"?
for me, I did both of them at once, and it was actually really, really good because you know that like one viewer, two viewer hump that most people can't get over
Yeah.
as a streamer. That was for me helped along by the fact that I had YouTube, and I was like, hey, by the way, I stream. Check it out at twitch.tv/Fareeha, or like I used to be called Blue Skies, and and um and I would have that and that cross promotion between YouTube and Reddit. You know, I would do these
Mhm.
educational videos that would put on Reddit. It would draw attention, whereas it would never get views on its own, right? And I'd get a couple thousand, and then a couple thousand of those, like maybe 10 people would check out the stream, and then there would be people, right? There would be people, and it would
Mhm.
grow slowly from that. It would be, yeah.
Okay, so what was it like, kind of growing your own Twitch brand? Because now you're popular. You're doing it. I mean,
Getting there.
you're getting
Slowly,
there.
slowly but surely.
A sponsored streamer here. We're going to not downplay any of that.
Okay.
Right. So you're building this out. What was it like to build your Twitch kind of platform? Because you after a point you just stopped the YouTube. What was the decision to stop YouTube? To be like, I don't really want to do this. Occasionally I might upload stuff, but I don't really want to do this.
It was the realization that I'm very slow at editing. That was my thing. Like I'm such a perfectionist in that if I don't find the perfect bit of music, if I don't find the perfect, like pop culture reference to like throw a clip of that in there, just to make it more funny. If I don't find the perfect, font or like placement or like anything like that, I will slave over that until it's just right. And I know there's a saying called the saying that goes, "Don't let perfection be the enemy of good," and
Mhm.
that was literally like my YouTube. Like I could not get things out, and I tried, but it was just so much slower, and I felt like if I tried to keep both up, I would be sacrificing on Twitch's end. So I was just like, it just slowly slid out, and I tried to keep longer streams on Twitch, and it just kind of went that way.
So you started holding longer streams on Twitch. Like, what was your viewership by the time that you decided to cut out YouTube? Was there a point where you're like, okay, I have enough followers on Twitch?
Mhm.
What was that
Probably
point?
around like the 100 to 200 range, where it was like I can probably just grow based on Twitch now. I don't need to do YouTube as much.
Okay, so was there ever a point where you were like, what was the point kind of where you were like, I can do this full time and I can make money from this, and I'm in a secure enough place that I can do this full time?
For me, I never really had that pressure because I lived at home
Yeah.
for all this time until like a month ago, and so I never really had a pressure to pay bills and stuff like that. But um, man, that there was a stress. There was a kind of a pressure to perform in terms of showing my family that this could
Yeah.
be a viable career, because I was hiding the fact that I was streaming for about the first year of this or so, first year, until after I got partnered.
Okay. So once you got partnered, and like you finally, like, what was that conversation like when you went out to your parents? Or like, okay, just FYI, last year I've been streaming the entire time.
Um, wow, it wasn't on my terms. It was actually horrifying because my mother was pretty intense, especially in my teenage years with like menopause and all hormones going crazy. I don't know the reason why, but um, a bunch of reasons. But she was really intense. She pretty much said to me that, like, oh, she kicked me out of the house, basically.
Really?
Is what I'll say. And we got it. Okay, I was up back on my way home from a concert, and she went to pick me up, and she started saying, "Oh, like how did they like your performance, all that stuff?" And I was like, "It was great." And she started saying, "Oh, how about your friends from like the past? Like, do you want to like invite them over to for like a birthday party? You want to throw like a really big birthday party and let them see how much you've grown? They'll be so amazed." And I'm like, "Mom, I those friends and I don't talk anymore, and can we please not talk about this? This doesn't make me this makes me uncomfortable to talk about this right now." And she just blew up. That's all I said to her, and she just completely lost it, and she started yelling at me, and she's like, "What did I do wrong?" And she's
Yeah.
yelling at me, and she's telling me to get out of the car. She pulls up on the side of the highway, and I just get dropped off there, like across the whole city, just like 2 hours away from home, just middle of the night, side of the
Did you
highway.
just walk back or?
Yep.
Oh,
And so seeing that she's gone to those extremes before, um, after the surgery, she had kind of all seen like how, I don't know, unproductive I was being. And for the first month they were understanding because they could see the pain, but afterwards it was it was more hidden. It wasn't so like surface level. It wasn't the swelling at all gone. It wasn't so much so that it was visible, but it was more like
hmm,
internal.
yeah.
And getting that sorted out was really really difficult on my end, but they saw that and they saw how like self-destructive and like wasteful I was being, and they were like, if we catch you gaming, you're gonna thrown out of the house. We're gonna smash this computer. You're gonna get a security camera installed in the corner of this room. We're gonna watch you while we work. We're gonna check that you're actually doing work and you're not, wasting away." And there would be these threats, and every time I would get caught, it would get worse. It would get worse and worse and worse. But eventually, I thought I was doing a good enough job of hiding the fact, and that it was also the reason why my streams were always during the day, and they would always end the minute I heard the door open, the front door open. And I was just like, "Shit, gotta go, guys. Good night. Love you all. Thanks for the stream. Bye." End stream right there. And I thought I was doing a good job of hiding it, but one day she approached me and she's like, "Fareeha, I know what you've been doing all this time." And I'm like, "Oh shit, she's gonna kick me out. I'm in for it now." And like I've made up these like plan Bs in my head of like where I would go to live, like where I would go to live
Mhm.
on the cheap, like where on the streets I could maybe, a house in, and like what would I take with me, and what could I take and sell so I could, get a start and buy myself time to get a job and get things sorted out. And I was like, "Oh shit." And I was so scared. I was so mortified. And she's like, "I know what you've been doing. You've been playing video games. You've been streaming. We found your stream." Stupid me for calling my stream Fareeha, I guess.
It's fair. Fair.
But yeah, like first thing you Google Twitch Fareeha is right there. And then she said, "I know you've been streaming on Twitch, and you know what? I raised you." I'm like, "Oh shit, here it comes. I raised you to be a smart and resourceful young woman, and I trust that you know what's right for you, and I trust that you can figure out what's what you should be doing with this life. So if you think that this is what you need to be doing, then I support you." And I'm like, I legit burst into tears. I just didn't know how to handle that, because she'd never uttered those words in her whole life. Like the "I support you," it broke me, dude. And I was like, holy crap. And
Ah,
then from then I didn't need to hide it anymore, and it was so nice.
that must have been just so relieving that you don't have
It was.
to, because you're lying to your family all the time about this. And that moment where you now you don't have to lie to anyone anymore, and you can be kind of who you are, and you can kind of put yourself out there the way that you want to and express yourself that way. That was something just so relieving for you.
Oh yeah, it's not just the streaming, it's like everything else that's tied to it. Like Discord, it's a gaming kind of thing, right? And then like being on Twitter, editing YouTube videos, watching through clips and like chatting with other people online. That's all tied together, and I had to hide all of that. And it was hard, man. It was hard, but it was so relieving. You're right.
Yeah. So you come out with that, and then you start streaming all the time. I one of the first things, so you were actually a recommendation by like someone in the public who was like, "Hey, we want to see this person on your show." Like when I first started it, like very close, like probably a couple months into it, I remember like getting that, and I was like, "I honestly don't know who this person is. I'm a terrible human being. Clearly,
No, I'm
mistakes
sure
were
you're not.
made. Mistakes were made." And I kind of like started looking. I was like, "Well, who is this person?" Because I get a lot of people who are not actually involved at all in anything. But I'd reach out to you and I was like, are you interested? And then one of the questions I had asked you then, I kind of want to ask you now, is you're actually very good at Overwatch. Not that you shouldn't be, but you are very good at Overwatch. And I had asked you kind of then, is a pro career ever something that you thought about trying to work towards or something that you would like to see?
I think for me, as someone who has done the thing of like putting your all into one thing and spending 8 hours to like 16 hours a day doing one thing, I can't do that for Overwatch. I can't. My body will just disagree with it, and my mental state just cannot. I can handle 8. I can handle even 12. I handle occasional 24-hour streams. I cannot handle 16 hours every single day. That kind of dedication, that kind of flaming, that that I don't get. But you know what? If I could handle it, and if I was good enough, and I was, like, if I was actually, that kind of material, I would work towards it, and the only reason I would do it is just to pave the way for other like women and other DPS players, other people who see this industry and see the community the way it is and how toxic it is, and see that other people can make it and make them want to do it too, because that's what's missing right now.
Okay, so let's kind of get into that because the toxicity is something that gets brought up and something I've asked a couple people and I've seen different kind of opinions here or there. But you're just playing. Let's actually take it from a different angle. I think that playing Overwatch 100%. Like we've seen some of the message that you've posted before and some of the toxicity that has happened there. 100% that is toxic. What's it like dealing with that?
I think now I can kind of remove myself from a little bit more. Now I struggle with my own voice of like, oh, you're boosted, you're like you're not good enough for all that kind of stuff. But these people, I've learned to tune them out, and it's this one line that I heard from. Oh, I think it was one of the American presidents, dude. It was, I can't remember the name exactly, but the line goes something like, if if you're in the arena and putting yourself out there, going outside of your comfort zone and, being uncomfortable, pushing yourself out there, you cannot take to heart the things said to you by the people who are not in the arena themselves. I don't know how to phrase this right. Like if you're not in the arena as well, like I do not care or value what you have to say about me, because those people who are sitting behind their computers and just typing all kinds of vile shit, they they don't mean crap. Like they're not putting themselves out there. They're not trying to like be vulnerable in such a way where all these people are watching them and all these people can criticize them however they want. They're not putting themselves out there like that because they're fucking cowards, and they're doing the easy thing of just being these keyboard warriors and like typing all these mean stuff up to cover up the fact that they have all this untapped desire and all this drive that they're letting go to waste. I don't know how to phrase that
No,
eloquently.
I think you phrased it. I think you phrased it fine. I think that's a good phrasing of kind of that. So, this toxicity, like, what aspects do you have to deal with it? Like, we obviously know that playing the game Overwatch itself, that there's toxicity. Is there any other avenues that you have toxicity coming in at you from?
It's combined with the stream, so I'll get stream sniped and then have my games thrown, and it's just extremely frustrating because it feels like a waste of time for everyone, because yeah, it's just really shitty. And I don't know, people who make accounts under my name, and then I find them in game, and they're like, I see them actively, calling people the N-word, calling people all kinds of names and just being an asshole under my name, and just like impersonators and people who will flood my chat with all kinds of hate. And yeah, it's rough. I feel like that
Is
though.
is this just a streamer thing, or like in
Might
general,
be.
you think, or do you like kind of asking you like because I've seen it in other streams too, but do you feel like it is more targeted because you are famous female in the scene, or do you think it's just something that is kind of a overall streamer slash pro scene?
I think part of it definitely is targeted because some of the messages make it very clear that it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like every streamer has to deal with this in some kind of way. Every pro has to deal with it. You know, people who see a bit of fame or see like the view count and go like, "Yo, I can get attention there. Like, why not? Why not be an absolute like butthole and make a fool out of myself?" I don't know what goes through their heads, but I feel like everybody has to deal with it. Maybe some more than others, but yeah, it's like a
So
universal thing.
so kind of looking at being a pro player, you were like, I'd never want to do this. This is not something that I want to put the time and energy to ever do like now.
Yeah, I could. I would put up with all the flaming and all the shit talking and all the stuff that like I'm sure Gregory has to deal with on a day to day basis. You know, the questioning of her validity and her
Yeah.
place in the Overwatch League. It's definitely something she has to deal with every single day. And she has this like place where she can never prove herself enough, and she's never
Yeah.
good enough in the eyes of some people, right? And that's just the way it is. But she's doing so much in the sense of like paving the way and showing other females that this is possible and this can be attained and this can be great in some ways. But I don't know, it's just the hours that will get to me. Like if I don't work out, if I don't put in more time for music and all that stuff, I don't feel like myself.
So another thing I was gonna ask you is like both streaming and content creation take a massive amount of hours. Like people don't realize, like even like this show, like the amount of hours that go in, because obviously it's like an hour
Mhm.
to 2 hours to 3 hours. But then there's like the editing that I do, but also like the research that I actually do on people is normally quite extensive.
Yay.
But like no one ever notices that stuff. But streamers are very much the same. I've always said there's no way in God's name I could ever be a streamer. I can't sit there. First of all, I can't sit there without anyone being in there because I need to talk to people.
Mhm.
But like there are people who do that, and you definitely had a point where you probably did that, and there wasn't very many people watching or anything like that. Those hours, kind of looking at taking breaks and stuff like that, and we talk about mental health. How do you kind of weave that in there? How do you weave in being able to take breaks? Because I've heard it's a pretty big fear about anyone who's in content creation or streaming that guess what? If you take a break, you could lose everything.
Oh yeah, like taking a break for a week as a streamer when your main source of income is monthly subscriptions. A week off is literally a quarter of your income gone, and to build back up to that is freaking difficult, right? Because as soon as people realize that, oh, this person's not consistent anymore, they're not really on, they take their attention elsewhere, right? And taking the time to build that is a lot. It takes a lot. But yeah, there's definitely a fear of taking a break. I really can't do it myself, but I've starting to find better avenues of kind of still getting content in, but not Overwatch, because that's the stuff that really burns me out. Is constant Overwatch competitive. It's a lot to do.
Do do you kind of worry that you've pigeonholed yourself in being just an Overwatch streamer? Is that like a fear of yours
Mm.
that like because obviously the game does not bring you the joy that it once used to, and now you're pretty much doing it now, probably mostly because it's a job and that this is what your fans want to see. Is that something that you're scared of that one day you won't be able to do that anymore?
Oh, I still love the game. I still love the game, and I still like adore playing it. It's just
Mhm.
like I you know what? Like I go into Overwatch streams now with the mentality like this is a mental health training session. This is a resilience testing day of Overwatch and of people not doing what you want them to do and people saying mean things that you have to filter out because your brain has to work for you instead of like working against
Yeah.
you. And so you just have to, I don't know, I look at it in a sense of like, I don't know, even if it's a bad day, as long as I control how I react and how I handle things, it can
Mhm.
still be a win on my end. And so that helps me get over it. But yeah, I think every single streamer that plays one main game has this issue of like, if you try to
Yeah.
play anything else, you don't have as many people interested or watching, and it does hurt.
Okay.
It's something you have to
So
work towards.
Yeah. So kind of looking at Gen.G and getting picked up by Gen.G, which is awesome. What was that whole experience like for you? Was it something you went and you seeked out, or was it something that randomly appeared on your doorstep one day?
It was absolutely surreal, dude. It was oh, I was making connections with the Toronto team at that time, and at the same time, like Gen.G approached me and they were like, "Hey, whatever whatever you want to do, we can help you with." And they gave me such compelling reasons to go with them. And everybody there I spoke to was so energetic and so passionate about about gaming and content and all that stuff. And they Gen.G is on this kick of just like female empowerment. Like they've
Yeah.
picked up so many female streamers, and they have this whole social media team and like this like management team of just like powerful women who have done so much for esports. And
Yeah.
it's so exciting to meet them all and to like you know get to know them and just be in that same space, because it's I don't know if I've seen this anywhere else before, like such.
I don't think so. Like I'm
Right,
trying to think.
yeah.
Like I don't think I. And it was because it wasn't just you. It was like they picked you up, and then all of a sudden I saw like a bunch of other people get picked
Hmm.
up too. By then I was like, whoa, and I was like, wow, they're building up functionally like their own like female empowerment as well
Yeah.
as like stream team. They have an entire content creation
Hmm.
dedicated towards a female audience, which or an audience in general. I guess it isn't female specific, but
Hmm.
I thought that that was something that was kind of really cool and kind of unique. So I actually want to kind of backtrack a little bit, and it's something that you kind of mentioned earlier. And
Hmm.
I kind of want to ask you kind of like how you dealt with one of the things that you had talked about is that your grandfather was someone who was like monumental in
Hmm.
kind of your upbringing. He passed away when you were younger. Um, what ended up happening there, and what was that experience kind of like for you? Because my grandfather died when I was 15, and it was very traumatic for me because
Yeah.
very, very important figure in
I'm
my life.
sorry.
So
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
sorry for you too.
I think he was 15. I was, he was 15. I was 14 or 15 as well.
Mhm.
It was like first year of high school and first year for me in this like music conservatory. And so it was a lot of stress, but a lot of like new exciting stuff, because it was like this really prestigious program that
Yeah.
you had to like audition to get into. And it was so exciting because he had always, for him, music was always his dream. Like he wanted to be a musician growing up, but he didn't have the resources or the like the funds to do so in like back in China. So he had all these dreams and aspirations that he kind of like put on my shoulders. And you know what? He did everything he could to make sure that, I had all the support and all the like the love and all the, the patience on like on his end to back that kind of work up. And so I don't know, I was really, really excited. But the instant that school year started, he started getting sick, and he started having these like insane coughing fits, and he would be like groaning in the middle of the night. And because like I was sleeping outside in the living room on this like fold out like wooden bed on the floor. I was practically just sleeping on the floor. I didn't have a mattress, but I would have such trouble sleeping, and I would like be angry at him, and I would like actually have resentment in my heart for for how much it was disrupting my life. And I didn't realize just how selfish that was until I finally found out what he had all this time. Because a few nights later, we had to call the ambulance because he was in really bad shape, and he got like sent to the ER immediately in like intensive care unit, and they like sorted him out. But the next day when I went to go visit him, he was all hugged up with tubes. Like his face was so yellow. He was like jaundiced, right? And like 2 or 3 days later, he passed away just like that. He went from this like completely seemingly healthy man to just completely collapsing and just and dying, not being able to talk. And I found out after he died that all these years he had hepatitis C and he had all types of cancer, and it was all getting worse and worse and worse, that nobody told me about. Not a single person told me about this. It fucked me up, dude. It fucked me up so much.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Did you get to like talk to him before he passed? Because that's like immediate. That's like there's like almost no time there. Did you get to like say goodbye or like you mentioned having this resentment? Did you get a chance to say, "Listen, I'm sorry"?
I didn't get that chance because I only knew afterwards. But I did get to after school every single day. I would make the commute like downtown to this hospital to go and see him. And I showed him. I remember showing him my timetable and the sheet music they had given us to practice, and he was so proud. He took my hand and he was so proud. It was just- yeah,
So
it was a
sorry.
hard month.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Like I'm like almost speechless because it's just so emotional. Like going through that, I can't imagine what that would have been like for you to kind of go through it, especially like looking how you persevered through all of that into the person you are who today. I think that he would be very proud of you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
So
I was so ridden with guilt, and I remember for the funeral, because I'm pretty good with graphic design and that kind of stuff. I was asked by my parents to make these pamphlets for the funeral, and it's like the perfectionism thing kicked in again,
yeah.
and I could not get it done. It's just I wanted to do it right, and I just couldn't get it done in time. I was just she yelled at me for so long over that for not being able to do that, and she never once understood how it felt like to have someone so close to you just disappear like that and not know why or not be told for the longest time what he was dealing with. Because I feel like if anybody had just told me, it would have made the whole thing so much easier. So I would have been able to come to terms with it before it even got to that point.
It seems like it's still something that you probably have a lot of regrets over. That you look back and it still probably brings you like you really wish that you could go back and have changed things. And it's kind of horrible that you never knew. Like you never got a chance to cope with it. You never got a chance to say goodbye to like if you
He
know
had
someone is like in your head you're probably thinking if I would have known this I would have spent so much more time with him. I would have done all these things with him. I would have got to
Yep.
experience like all of these different things together. And I don't know how you could not have those thoughts like going
Yeah,
through that.
it's like that feeling of like when you don't have that gratitude for what you have in the moment, and you think there's always time for more, and you always think, oh, maybe next week I'll invite him out to dinner, maybe
Yeah.
maybe the next month we can spend some time together, like, and go for a hike or whatever. He was such a good man. Like, this was a man who he was a chemistry professor at one point, and he had a very bad lab accident where it resulted in like this huge chemical fire erupting, and it caught the whole room and caught the whole school in flames.
Jesus.
And he actually ran back in and saved two students, but at the cost of like half his face. Like, his ear, I think it was his left ear, was burned off. Like, it was gone. Like, he had a prosthetic that he had to glue on the side of his face, and like half his face, he was Suko. He just had to have his face just charred and burned, and it was that kind of like, kind of leathery skin. Yeah, it's amazing, man. We
So
still we still
sorry.
get letters from the families of those two students, just keeping us updated on their lives and thanking us every year.
That must have made you kind of appreciate at least life to some degree more, like never to take things for granted, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
probably now, like you probably look at like the relationship with like your parents or your grandmother, and I imagine that was something that probably like made you realize, hey, I need to make sure that we have some sort of relationship there because if I don't, it could be gone tomorrow.
Absolutely. And always, like, it's just always with everyone, if you feel a sense of closeness, even if it's a friend, just like every now and then say I love you, tell them how much you appreciate them, tell them how much you value them, because then you never know, right? Never know. Always be grateful.
I think that is. I have like one more question for you, but I think that's a really powerful point to kind of start to wrap up the show. Like, remember the people that you love, and make sure to reach out and to make sure that they're a part of your life, because you really do never know what's going to happen to them. So kind of coming to the close of the show, and being at the point where we are now. I have one question for you. It's probably going to be much easier than any other question I've asked you so far, which is, like I said, this is kind of a unique style of show and interview and conversation. So you've had the experience being on the show, and we've delved through your life to show people who you are as a person. That being said, I think you're an amazing person, by the way.
Aw,
That being said, having been on this show and had this experience, if you could pick anyone to be on the show that you would like to see, the only criteria is they need to speak English, because I am uncultured and only speak English, and they have to be involved in esports in some aspect. Okay, that is the only requirements. Who would you pick?
I would pick a girl called Annie. Do you know her?
Is that the Florida Mayhem streamer?
Yep, that's her.
Okay. See, I'm learning. I'm learning. You'd pick Annie.
Yes, you got it.
Okay, I think that Annie is a good choice. That being said, I normally don't do shoutouts. If you want shoutouts, you're more than welcome to have them. So my very limited audience is your audience if you'd like them.
It's okay. I think we're good.
Good. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show. I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank
Really
you for having me.
happy to have had you on the show. And I'm excited to see what people people get to know you on a different level than maybe they've seen other places. So with that, I thank you so much. Everyone, this has been Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name's Blake Panashevitz, and until next time, I hope everyone has a wonderful day.